Today's episode is brought to you by the Sounds in Cinema podcast.
Everything sequel contains explicit language. And why the fudge not, you melon farmer?
My name is Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Joining me, the happiest man on planet Earth, Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions. Hello, Tom.
You bloody bastards! There's so many bloodies in Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah.
It's like a Michael Caine movie. I half expected the movie to end with, "You're only supposed to blow the bloody world up!"
I won't bury another ape. That was a terrible... all of a sudden I turned into Katharine Hepburn for my Michael Caine.
Oh, Katharine Hepburn as Alfred. I like it. Progressive.
Norman, you old poop.
You bloody bastards is one of those lines that, to me, is trying to recreate the magic of a moment from the original movie.
Right.
Without sort of coming up with an equivalent line. It almost feels like Charlton Heston was sort of just saying whatever came into his mind.
Well, that was one of my biggest surprises for the series. First of all, I have a huge surprise for you. Ladies and gentlemen, let's let our audience know.
Let's infinite regression this.
Yes.
Let's move back and back again.
Until I disappear.
We're now looking at Mike and Tom podcasting, and now we're Mike and Tom podcasting, looking at Mike and Tom podcasting, looking at Mike and Tom podcasting.
What do they call that?
Infinite regression.
Regression, yeah. So, please explain to the audience, first of all, why are you the happiest man on Earth?
Well, this series is very personal to me. The original Planet of the Apes. By the way, I like the fact that the plural of Planet of the Apes threw you in the intro. Because it's unusual you get that plural,
right,
of apes. And we're just like, what do you do after that? Yeah, so the original Planet of the Apes is in my top 10 favorite movies of all time. However, this is
top 10, wow.
Oh, absolutely, hands down. But paws down. Monkey paws down. But yet again, it is a series that I first experienced through the sequels.
Oh, wow, okay.
So, Beneath and Battle and Battle of were the first two Apes movies that I saw at an age where I was kind of too young to know I wasn't actually watching Planet of the Apes.
So, but you saw the first and the fourth sequels?
Yes.
First?
Yes.
Okay.
And subsequently, I have so many anecdotes of my memories of watching these movies, which we'll get to when we talk about the individual movies. But I suppose, we're not just doing this for my own gratification. In terms of the podcast, this is such an important series of movies. It is the oldest film series we've done so far.
Yeah.
I think the closest contenders are Jaws and Superman. And as such, the series have a number of devices and conventions and techniques that we're very familiar with, but we also have to remind ourselves that this is such a formative series that every time we see anything, it's one of the first times. Bless you, sir.
There you go.
It's one of the first times that it's ever been attempted.
Yes.
And yet the ways that these movies do sequel cinema are still with us today.
And what's interesting is that these movies came out at a time, and especially when you're talking about Beneath the Planet of the Apes, because they get, the band back together to an extent.
Yes.
And sequels at that time were far more vilified than they are now. It was, you were slumming if you were doing
Yeah.
sequels.
Yeah, and
But
Charlton Heston,
and he,
compared it to the Andy Hardy series. He said that,
exactly,
and didn't want to do it
and
because
didn't.
it was a subset of filmmaking.
Well, I have a bit of a surprise for you, and I'm sure our listeners. Tom, I had not seen a single sequel to Planet of the Apes.
Interesting.
I
But
have
you've seen
not
the
watched.
original,
I've seen the original several times.
right? And you naturally assumed that the story
And I, of
ended
course,
there.
watched it in preparation for this, as I sometimes do.
I mean, it's interesting because we've just done the Halloween series, and we talked about how John Carpenter, when he was writing Halloween 2, thought the story had nowhere to go.
Yeah.
And, we disputed that. I'm not going to dispute that here. The story had nowhere to go at the end of Planet of the Apes. Like,
Right.
definitively. Almost, principally. It had nowhere to go.
But like you said, I marveled watching these movies and seeing what we've come to know as the sequel conventions.
Yeah.
I was kind of mesmerized by it. It really struck me that we're seeing the kind of, the birth of sequeldom as we know it today.
Absolutely. The earliest incarnations of...
Credit where credit needs to be due.
Absolutely. And it's not something, and I'm glad that we're doing this series as well on this podcast, because it's not what this series is famous for basically inventing the modern day idea of a film franchise, which you could definitely argue that it does, and I will.
Of course.
But it's famous. It's famous otherwise. It's a really interesting film property because the original holds so much weight. A lot of people are like you; they don't look beyond that first movie, and even from my perspective, I understand that because it is one of the most perfect movies ever made. Why would you dilute that experience? I get it. But the brand has lasted from the late 60s until now.
Yeah.
And I don't really know why. Because it's barely been it's barely been rebooted. We've had a reboot trilogy and
right.
an abandoned single reboot by Tim Burton.
But yeah.
Compared
this
to what
series
Marvel
survived
do,
a
or
terrible
Star Wars, or
Tim Burton reboot.
Nothing like that's nothing to sort of maintain the brand, and yet it's like the iconography of it remains culturally relevant. And I guess you see it's kind of drifted into other areas of culture like fashion and comedy style. And maybe that's a part of it, but what it's not famous for is being, the inspiration for how we do sequel cinema, up till this very day. So I'm glad that that's specifically what we're going to be discussing.
Well, indeed, we are.
By just focusing on on how they keep the series going.
And the choices they make are fascinating to me.
Yes. Exactly. It is, it's not just that they have to dig themselves out of the deepest holes you have ever seen in cinema.
Yeah.
And purposefully too, if you look at behind the scenes.
And there's some confounding shit in these movies.
At every turn, they are trying to end this franchise by what they do in the movie.
Well, that was one of my notes, was that it was one of my notes, in my research, it was clear that with every movie they made, except, I think, for the third to the fourth sequels, I don't think I think they had planned for that fourth sequel, or at least had an idea in their head that they were going to make another one more.
Right.
Whereas before it was always like, we're done.
Yes.
Yeah.
We're done. Oh, the box office is good. We're making another one.
Yeah, exactly.
You know, and every time they had you know, the series was literally dead in the water on more than one occasion.
Right.
And they somehow revived it through you know, what I would call cinematic ingenuity.
Yes.
And it's the kind of ingenuity that...
Well, it reminds me very much of how we talked about in the Halloween series as well, when we talked about Halloween 4, about what you choose to just ignore or address, you know?
And that's you know, again, it's a formative example of picking and choosing the mythology that works for this particular sequel. And the idea that, you know, you want the audience to kind of see it as one continuous movie, but in order to do that, you have to disguise or conceal a lot that's happened in order to make that happen. And it's just fascinating. Yeah, we're also in the pre-VHS era, so the filmmakers have the audience over a barrel because they can't go back and check plot points,
and boy,
that are subsequently
does that help
retconned.
them out.
Yeah. It's like...
Because there's an awful lot of ball dropping in this
it's
series.
Like, it's the screenwriters going, we're telling you this is how it went. You may remember it differently, but this is how it went.
Right. Right.
And that makes it fascinating. Fascinating viewing when you're doing it back to back. Because... you know, the way that the previous movie is remembered in a subsequent movie, it changes drastically over the franchise.
Yeah.
Everyone's relationship to each other changes.
Mm-hmm.
What's happened has changed, or, you know, more is revealed about it. Less is made of certain things that seem really important. And
we've got everything. We have imbasses. We have surrogates. I mean, like, this series covers all bases.
Sequel inversions.
Yeah, inversions.
It's almost as if this is what we invented the terminology for.
Exactly.
On this show. We finally found a text that complements our terminology
to
perfectly.
My delight, by the way, because this was my first viewing of all of these sequels.
You must have sat there with, like, mouth agape.
Yeah.
Or mouth ape for for hours and hours.
Yes.
And it's really interesting because one of my anecdotes involves someone who's in the same position of you, like, watching these movies. Like, I was watching these movies with someone who'd never seen them before, and he was trying to predict what would happen next.
Oh, well, good luck.
No, exactly, but what his guesses were really interesting, and we'll talk about that later. But safe to say, this is not... You can't predict where this series is going.
Ever.
Even temporally.
Yeah.
You don't even know what century the next movie's going to be in.
Yeah. I mean, by the third movie, we're fucking Star Trek 4ing this shit.
Yep. Yes. Before it was not
before it was in vogue.
Before. Yeah, it's
so it's just like, whatever you think you've done with your sequel, the Planet of the Apes series, man, they did it fucking first.
And I don't hear much about it, and that's interesting. You know, no one's, you know, no filmmaker is coming out and saying, "Well, we wanted to do an Escape from the Planet of the Apes on this one." You know, you don't hear that, which is strange because you can see the lineage of you know, I'm talking about big budget Hollywood movies that are in these huge, sprawling series that have literally nowhere to go. And what do you do? And filmmakers are still doing what Planet of the Apes did when faced with the same set of circumstances, which is fascinating to me.
They pull the batshit crazy card.
Yeah.
And say, let's do this.
And what's also interesting about that, one of the reasons that this is one of my favorite film series, is that there's so much variety within that. No one movie is, no one movie is like the other, and there's a real sense of that you change the kind of movie it is every time.
Right.
Which is very purposeful.
They Superman 3 it every time.
Yeah, and it's not, and like Superman 3, it's a very deliberate change in approach and tone every single time, based on audience response and based on just wanting to do something different.
Yeah,
and not knowing where to go, being at an impasse and having to come up with something that takes you down a totally different road.
Obviously...
different highway.
There you go.
Because time, as you know, is like taking different exits on a highway or motorway, depending on which movie we're talking about.
Depending on which movie we're watching, exactly. Yeah. So, ladies and gentlemen, obviously, we're starting this new series, so we're here to rank and declare. Tom, you're in love with this series. How easy or hard was this for you to rank?
Half of it was hard.
Interesting.
Yeah, and I'll leave it at that, so that I'm not tipping my hand. But it may surprise you which half was hard. So I sound like clickbait now, don't I?
Yeah, I mean,
you may be surprised what the answer is.
Living incarnation, but I kind of feel the same way you do.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, it's interesting to ask yourself what you appreciate in a sequel.
Right. And this series gives you all the options. It's multiple choice.
Yeah.
it's a multiple choice exam for sequels.
A, B, C, and D, man.
Yeah. Yeah. You that's it. I mean, you're profiling yourself as to what kind of a sequel lover you are.
Mm-hmm.
By what you got, which movie you prefer over what movie.
All right, I am dying to know which movie is at the top of your list.
The answer may surprise you.
Hit me with it.
Okay, so Tom's rule of 3.
Now, wait, before you even answer.
Oh, God.
Like, is this cemented, or could it be different on any other day?
Let's say my top 2 could flip on any other day.
All right.
My bottom 2, I think, will always be where they are.
I'm so fascinated. All right. I think you were letting it slip already.
Yeah, I know.
Go ahead.
Tom's rule of 3 rules supreme. It's Escape from the Planet of the Apes.
Wow.
And this again, as you alluded to, it's a total.
Oh no! Wait. Okay. No. All right. Then. For some reason,
what did you think that movie was?
I was thinking when you said 3, I was thinking the third sequel. So my mind was going to Conquest.
No.
And I was like, wow, big swing. All right.
Escape from the Planet of the Apes. Because the tone of these movies oscillates between zany and apocalyptic.
Yes.
I feel that this is the most balanced, satisfied mix of tone.
Yeah.
I
will declare that I am on your page. Escape from the Planet of the Apes was my favorite.
That's fascinating.
Yeah. But I have a second one that's real fucking close. Like it
Me
was,
too.
I went back and forth
Yeah.
several, like I really, really, really had a hard time deciding between the two. But like
And
you said, because of the oscillation
yeah.
between kind of zany or campy or fun and apocalyptic,
Yeah.
but what that movie does, especially with the ending,
Mm-hmm.
where the tone changes
Yeah.
drastically, I really appreciated that,
Yes.
and it made me love that movie.
Well, it was still a science fiction film from the 1970s.
Yeah.
So it has to be ultimately bleak and nihilistic.
Exactly.
Or it wouldn't feel
exactly.
right for the
And
time.
boy, did they hit the mark on that one.
Yeah,
But
but you're absolutely right as well. That change,
But it made me love it.
tone kind of creeps up on you in a way that is not at all clunky.
Right.
And the same can't really be said for the rest of these movies in terms of how they manage that balance.
I agree.
And also, you know, I think of the sequels, this is the best example of what I like overall about this series when it hits its highs. It's brain food that is thoroughly entertaining.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting, I was watching a behind the scenes documentary on my DVD box set of Planet of the Apes called Behind the Planet of the Apes, which is it's produced by 20th Century Fox, but it's pretty like, you know, it's pretty no holds barred in criticizing the movie, so it's actually a really useful watch. And that was the original pitch, the brief is we want for the original Planet of the Apes, we want an adventure movie that, you know, has some kind of something intellectual about it too.
Mm.
And for me, Escape hits that brief the best of all the sequels. I mean, I was thinking about it in terms of, you know, if I was a kid and I went out to the movies on a Saturday night and I came home and my mom said, what did you learn? And I went to see Transformers.
Right.
I'd be like, robots smash things! And Michael Bay still can't direct a movie after 20 years and all the resources that Hollywood could throw at him. If it was Escape from the Planet of the Apes, I'd be like, the basics of infinite regression. And my mom would be like, well, how did that come up in the course of the movie? Well, they just told
painting
me.
Of a painting of a painting of a painting of a painting of a painting.
It wasn't really relevant to anything that was going on, but they decided to have like a mini lecture in the middle of it. I'm skipping school on Monday. See you in 2 days. Bye. So I'm
gonna go hobo jump some trains and get into some mischief.
And it's probably the one movie in this series that recaptures the spirit of the original and what it was trying to do with allegory and kind of fish out of water.
Right.
Because it's, you know, it's a straight up
it's an inversion
of Planet of the Apes.
Right.
But interestingly, that came from the source novel of Planet of the Apes, Monkey Planet by Pierre Boulle, where, you know, it was a man on a planet of apes, but the Planet of Apes was a modern day advanced society. And so they're plugging back into that. And Pierre Boulle actually wrote a treatment for Beneath the Planet of the Apes called Planet of the Men. And so this feels more connected to the source material of the series.
Interesting.
Than perhaps some of the others do. But in a way that's not samey or, you know, falling back on the same tropes and conventions. It's inventing new ones. I mean,
right.
It took, the series was dead in the water and it was literally salvaged by this movie, and they got from the basis of this, they got 2 more sequels out of it. I mean, it's just a remarkable moment in the series and a remarkable movie in its own right, I think.
Well, and I think what that movie chooses to do, like you said, gives us the next 2 sequels, and it's those sequels that or at least the idea of them, that gave us our most current trilogy.
That's it.
You know? Yeah. So that's the legacy, you know.
Absolutely.
It gave birth to what modern audiences know of these movies, probably without ever having seen these original sequels.
Absolutely. And, interestingly, the modern day Apes trilogy, the Caesar trilogy, is never advertised as a remake of these three movies, and they absolutely are.
Yeah.
But the filmmakers and the people behind the publicity don't make anything of that, which says a lot about the reputation of these films versus their influence on cinema, in a real sense.
Yeah.
Which is huge.
Yeah, absolutely. All right. Well,
so we both did Escape. That's great.
So I'm on your 3-page. For once, I'm on your 3-page.
Yeah. Okay.
Do you want me to go next?
Yeah, let's flip. Let's do a Planet of the Apes and flip it around.
There you go. My second favorite in the series is The Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Oh my god!
Yeah.
Whoa! You really have seen this for the first time. Whoa!
What's your problem?
No, hey,
I love that movie.
There are no wrong answers here, Mike. No wrong answers. It's just that nobody in history has ever given that answer. You can say nothing about this series that will upset me, but I gotta say that is probably the biggest surprise you could bring to the table.
Wow! All right.
Do you know how disliked that movie is?
I can't imagine why. It's got fucking Sheriff Lobo.
Well, that's your criteria.
No, what I like about it is it's completely straightforward narratively.
Yeah. I that's what I like about it too.
And I love that about it.
But I got to tell you, there are some people who think of it as the Good Day to Die Hard of this series. Not me.
Wow, they're
but
wrong.
There are many.
They're wrong.
I was going to talk about that specifically, saying I don't actively dislike it, like many people, even fans of the series and just audiences in general do. So I'm so grateful that you.
I loved it.
I'm so grateful that you see the good in that movie, because I see the good in it too. But I'm not going to be as vociferous as you.
But not quite as much as not rising to my level.
Not rising to your level,
yeah.
but that's fine. I mean, as I said, there's nothing you can say except that maybe you prefer the Tim Burton version. That would.
No, I do not.
Good.
That's a terrible movie.
It is a terrible movie. Wow. Well, that came out of left field. But I feel like I just woke up.
I can't wait to talk about these movies because I'm so surprised that what you're saying about these movies catching as much, or that movie in particular catching as much shit as it did.
I have a lot of problems with the movie. I will say that, but not to the extent that its reputation outside of the movie does. But that's fascinating to hear. I'm really grateful that you have a pair of fresh eyes on this, because
love it.
You came to this with no preconceptions, and even I am a little bit affected by
what you've heard.
What people say about that movie, because some of it is justified. The majority of it isn't, though.
All right,
but good
Tell
for you.
me, sir.
You look past the school bus. Well done. That speaks enormously well of you, that you can look past a school bus, military vehicle.
I got no problems with it.
Steve still seems good. Wow. Is it The Battle or Battle? It's just Battle, right?
Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
Yeah. Did I say
I think you said that. This is something we're going to have to get to grips with as well.
Yeah.
These titles when you say them out loud, these titles are not set in stone.
Right.
Because you have to make sense of them in your own heads.
In your own head. They're
with
unwieldy.
Tense and plural
yeah.
and sentence construction, and it always comes out a little differently.
Heard.
Again, I am not going to be a purist about this at all.
All right. What is your second favorite in the series?
Wait a minute. Did you say that Battle could have been your top?
I did.
Oh, wow.
I loved it.
Are you sure you just weren't happy that they were over?
I swear to
It's
God.
like an end of school kind of like.
I fucking love that movie.
Great.
You know how I feel about narrative.
I do, and you know what? You're right. It is. Well, we'll talk about it when we talk about it. Because I've still got to say where I put it as well, and whether it's good or bad. The next on my list, and now I feel like, like a really boring person now, but it is. We're going Beneath the Planet of the Apes.
All right.
And the only
but
reason
that's the thing is that I like, for the most part, these movies are really close to me.
Yes.
Even though, like you, I think Escape from the Planet of the Apes actually really is kind of a step above everything else.
Yeah, I agree.
But
except when it comes to, ironically, ape costumes.
Right.
Which is one of the stranger ironies. The best sequel has the worst ape outfits.
Yeah, but in terms of what we were talking about earlier, in terms of everything that modern day sequels build out of, I can't ignore that movie sets in motion so much that other sequels have borrowed from.
It also, on a personal
but the only
level,
reason that Battle becomes so close for me is, like I said, because I love a good narrative, and this story makes sense. And there's a lot in these movies that doesn't make sense.
Yeah.
But like you, I can appreciate the things that don't make sense. So, but I'm going to let you talk about Beneath a little bit if you want.
Yeah, just a little bit. The only reason this didn't take top spot for me, it's kind of a mirror image of Halloween 2.
Yeah.
If it was just the second half of the movie that I was basing my rankings on, I'd absolutely put it at the top.
At the top.
The first half of the movie is, frankly, a speed through of the original.
Yeah. But that's what downgrades
make no
it
bones
for me.
About that.
That's what downgrades it for me, and that's why 4 is above it.
Yeah.
So I may as well announce that Beneath the Planet of the Apes is my third.
Is Beneath Battle.
Yes.
Beneath
is Beneath Battle.
But honestly, the second half of that movie, it's experimental, it's ambitious, it takes
I have a note here that says this movie just dropped acid.
It takes cinema, it takes the series and cinema down a road it has never been before.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's perhaps the most fitting introduction to a decade of science fiction cinema that will be the bleakest you will ever get.
Right.
In history, in Hollywood history, and it's all there from. This is a movie made in 1970, and it tells you everything you need to know about science fiction cinema in the 70s.
Mm-hmm.
Like on day one, they told you what it was all gonna be.
Well, that's what's so interesting to me about that movie is the like you said, the first half is just a retread. And in that way, it's repetitive and a little bit boring. And then all of a sudden, the gas pedal goes to the floor. So, juxtaposing the two halves of that movie to me, like it's it's so crazy that, like you, I almost like, but I love a good narrative, so that's why 4 jumps so close to the top for me. But I really respect like the batshit craziness of this movie, the tone of it, especially in that second half. Well, I don't want to talk about it too much until we talk
I
about
know
the
exactly
movie.
what you're talking about, and I had exactly the same feeling. It is definitely it starts off so unremarkably and then becomes so remarkable.
Yeah.
That you have to give it credit, but you can't ignore the first half of that movie because it's dry as a bone.
Right.
There's nothing new there.
And then all of a sudden you're sucking on the marrow.
So we'll talk about that, and I have a tremendous amount to say, but it ranks highly, even though I know there are structural problems with it.
Yeah, me too.
But I also forgive it more than I do, say, a movie that would do this in 2000 or 1990, because it is very early on in movie sequel history, and even the idea.
Well, that's what's most
the
so
idea
fast.
Of a
that's
film
what
series is still. We're in the infancy here. The children, you can tell that first half is just them trying to figure out what the hell do we do.
But that's what's so fascinating about the movie is that the first half of it feels like, okay, this is how we do it, guys, right? Like, isn't this how we should do it? This is how we make a sequel. All sequels should be like this, right? And then, I swear to God, somebody stuck a firecracker up their asshole and was like, let's do this.
Yep.
And then the movie just goes to 11.
Right.
And so to have both those things happening in one movie is insane to me.
It is. It's
crazy.
It's a legitimately crazy movie.
All right. Well, we now know what's at the bottom of my list because
you Conquest.
So Conquest is at the bottom for me. So now before between Conquest and Battle, what's 3? What's 4 for you?
Well, I'm gonna go Conquest.
Oh wow! Battle at the bottom, Tom.
Battle at the bottom, yeah. Which is how history is not on your side here, Mike.
They're all wrong. I'm telling you.
I know we're dealing with alternate timelines, but there is, as I understand, no alternate timeline in which Battle of the Planet of the Apes is most people's second favorite. So here's why Conquest is low and not at the bottom for me. The political ideas in this movie are beyond what you even get today in the most sophisticated piece of Hollywood fantasy cinema. There is literally a scene in this movie where they talk, what's his name? McDonald asks Caesar, "What are you gonna do?" And he replies, "All that's left, revolution."
Mm-hmm.
To express that in a Hollywood movie in any era, I am in such awe of this movie, but it's also undeniable that it fumbles the ball at the touchline and walks that back in a way that you can't ignore. It's also probably tonally the most off balance of the movies.
Exactly.
And there are times when it is just so kitsch in its execution that there's a lot of laughable moments that weren't meant to be laughable.
So there's that. And then on top of it, for me, narratively, this movie just chooses to ignore shit that has been brought up in other movies, which I also kind of respect and like about it, but
yeah.
But it just fucks shit up.
But this movie, like, it was like thinking about it. This, even though it walks it back at the 11th hour, this movie almost endorses a radical socialist revolution.
I know.
I mean, if we were judging it on that alone, it would be on top of my list. But it's almost worse that it doesn't make it to the, it doesn't make it to the touchline.
Mm-hmm.
And there are things in execution that just simply don't work for me.
Yeah, I agree with that.
But it's really interesting if you think about, like, what's the safest move you could make at this point in the series, and they actually come up with something so risky it had never been attempted in Hollywood cinema before nor since. That's how this series rolls.
Yeah, exactly. Well, I got some key points to talk about for Conquest, but I will save it for later.
Fair enough. It's definitely a very flawed movie, noticeably so.
Yeah. But is it good?
We'll find out.
Where do you stand, sir?
Battle's at the bottom of my list, and
right.
All I wanted to say about that is I think we're on the same page when it comes.
You want to apologize? Admit
No.
you're wrong?
No,
And rethink it?
And no one will hold it against me. You are literally out. You are on the island of the apes here, Mike. Never mind the Planet of the Apes. You are on an island. You're on a fucking asteroid of the apes.
I'm on that island of Dr. Moreau that...
Who's to say that's not on the Planet of the Apes? We only see one village in the whole fucking series.
It's Marlon Brando's version. That's the one I'm on.
Yes. Yeah. All I'll say is what I really like about it is that the parts of it that are in the Ape City, it's like a really good one-act play.
Mm-hmm.
The chamber drama within
yes,
is excellent, and you simply don't need anything that happens outside. Going back to the Forbidden Zone for me was a big mistake, and that's where I do chime with the criticism of the movie, which is centered around that. I think you've got every conflict, every dynamic, every piece of drama you need is within that ape city. You don't need what is outside it, and I think I understand the urge to wrap up the whole franchise, which is what I think they're trying to do by tying.
Because by the time this movie comes out, they know they're going to a television series.
Yes. So I understand why they did it, but in a way they screwed themselves, because the drama within the Ape City is better when it's contained in there, because it doesn't change the stakes of anything.
Mm-hmm.
The stakes, it's
remain the same.
Yeah, if this goes wrong, you get Planet of the Apes. If you don't, you get some kind of utopia. Those are the stakes, and they're all in the city, and nothing that happens outside the city affects that at all. That's my big problem with it.
All
right. Wow. Okay. And apparently...
none of that bothers me.
Apparently that's a controversial view in this... on the island of Dr. Moreau.
I'm just saying, none of it bothers me. You're not wrong, but...
neither are you. I love it.
Yeah.
I love it so much.
Because there's something about... what I liked about, like, the Forbidden City part, and it coming to the apes in where like the Ape City. What I like about
it an Ape City, but it's a village.
Yeah, it's a village. But what I like about it is this idea of, even within the strife within their own community, they have to find a way to even working on opposing sides.
That does need to be an outside threat. I acknowledge that. But But the outside threat is not threatening, and that's a big problem.
Okay, well, yeah. Now there you've got me. There you absolutely have me. Because of money constraints, we see the same tree blown up 43 times. All of that's true. But
please don't lose your desire to defend
I'm not.
the good of this movie.
Fuck
because
no.
you know what? And I don't mean this in a bad way at all. People will think I will.
Go ahead.
It feels to me like a cinematic version of Little House on the Prairie. And I love that series.
Actually, I think yeah. I'm not taking offense to that.
No. And I love that TV series.
It doesn't change my mind.
No.
But you're absolutely right.
There are actual scenes there's scenes that are very similar to an episode of Little House on the Prairie that I specifically remember.
I'm thinking of Scrooged right now. Is that the Coming Home episode of Little House on the Prairie? Yes, it's the Coming Home episode.
I thought it was good. I thought like a better ending to this would be sort of John Huston as the lawgiver,
and I was gonna say,
running over a hill.
Yeah, this movie has John Huston as an orangutan. Come on.
Actually, you could end it with those ape and human children running over a hill, and it would look fun. You would totally read as being from this movie.
All right, friend.
Ooh.
Down to the nitty gritty.
Yeah.
How do you want to do it?
Chronologically, that's what we usually do, right?
Yeah, usually.
Yeah.
But
which is harder to do. I mean chronologically in release order. Let's not get into like when these movies are set in history.
Not their own times, no. Because we wouldn't even know where to start.
Right. Beneath. No, it's just beneath, isn't it? Because we already have the from the Planet of the Apes.
Yeah, it's beneath the Planet of the Apes.
Okay.
I'm saying good.
Good.
And Escape, I think we're both saying that's a good movie, right?
It's a great movie.
All right, then. Conquest, sir.
Good.
Me too.
Okay. So you're going all good?
I am.
This was a game day decision, but I cannot say there is not enough good in Battle for the Planet of the Apes.
Get the fuck out of here.
I cannot say there is not enough good in Battle for the Planet of the Apes. I'm game show hosting you here, Michael. You have won a not prize of yes, is what I did.
Good.
Yeah, it's good.
They're all good.
I got it. Everything that's bad about this movie is at the fringes.
Yeah.
Of the
and
movie.
There's just, like you said, what's going on with the apes is so good.
Yes.
That I think it could overcome anything else.
Well, it has to.
And does.
It has no choice. It's a simple...
Yeah.
And I realized I was talking literally when I said the fringes, because we're dealing with a group of people who have quite prominent fringes.
Yes. Yes, indeed.
Where their skin ends. Okay,
I'm delighted. I was really curious if you were going to be all good, and I suspected you were going to be.
Yeah, I nearly wasn't. I have issues. I'm right on the line with Battle. Right on the line.
See, I'm right on the line for Conquest.
That's great. Well, then that makes it interesting without either of us having to play devil's advocate. Yeah.
And I could almost convince myself to be on the line for Beneath, just for the first half.
That's a lot to answer. Again,
but the second half is so fucking amazing that it's like it's a rocket ship.
Yeah.
I mean, there's no way I could call it a bad movie.
If you told me that, director Ted Post died during filming and was replaced by Dennis Hopper,
right? Exactly.
I would believe you.
Yes, yes. Or David Lynch.
Absolutely. No. Prepubescent David Lynch could have made that. Absolutely.
Right. Oh, I'm delighted by all of this. I'm so happy right now.
Yeah.
All right. Anything left for you before we move on to Beneath the Planet of the Apes?
No. Let's get
do
there.
it.
Yeah.
I'm excited. All right, ladies and gentlemen. What
You're
do you
going to enjoy
think?
my last quotable.
Oh,
Without knowing it, I picked
you're
the
selling
perfect.
it. All right, ladies and gentlemen, what do you think of the Planet of the Apes series? Please, by all means, tell us your rankings. Declare good or bad. How do you feel about these movies? I want to know. Tom needs to know. Find us on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter. By all means, please send us an email to everythingsequel@gmail.com. For Tom Stewart of Lonesome Whistle Productions, I am Michael Shantz of the How Dare You Awards. Say goodbye, Tom.
Well, we're all radiated, but at least we're active. There's a little bit of punnery from Battle of the Planet of the Apes.
There you go.
Battle for the Planet of the Apes? Who
4.
knows?
Wait. Yeah, I think 4.
Battle 4, yeah. Makes more sense. Slightly.
Yes, Battle 4.
We're going to talk a lot about Virgil.
Oh, yeah.
You will get no complaints to me about Paul Williams as Virgil.
Oh, amazing. And what's amazing, too, is the second he even speaks, if you did, like, because of the makeup, yes. But you're going to go, hey, that's Paul Williams.
Hey, there's little Enoch.
Yeah.
That's the guy who voices all the kids in Bugsy Malone.
It's little Enos.
Enos, not Enoch, sorry.
Yeah.
That's
all right.
A better joke. That won't be the last time we talk about Burt Reynolds, though.
Nope. All right, ladies and gentlemen, stay tuned. Beneath the Planet of the Apes is coming up next.